Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I am back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I received over the past 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you're taking, not taking, considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can also DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. All right, so let's get started on this week's No Filter Q&A with question number 1. Nick, would you put a natural athlete on the same diet plan as someone who uses steroids and fat burners? Well, I don't put anyone on the exact same diet plan. Now, if I'm working with someone who is an enhanced athlete, which is someone who uses anabolic steroids and fat burners, versus someone who's a natural athlete, obviously not using any steroids, maybe using a few over-the-counter supplements, I would typically start them with the same food groups. You know, I'm a huge advocate of using healthy fats, complex carbohydrates, and lean protein sources. So in that case, yes, I would use the same food groups, but the portions might change. And it's not just based on the anabolic usage, but it's also based on the individual. Am I working with someone who's an endomorph? Do they gain fat easily? Am I working with someone who's an ectomorph who has a hard time putting on weight, right? Am I working with someone who's a mesomorph who's like a genetic mutant who can just put on muscle by looking at a dumbbell? So it really depends on the type of person I'm working with, male, female, age, right? Activity level, lifestyle. So there's a lot of factors to take into consideration that go beyond the realm of using anabolic steroids. But with that said, if I were to take two people, and let's just say they're both endomorphs. So both of these people put on fat quite easily. One's using anabolic steroids and fat burners. The other one's completely natural. Let's say I start them with the same food groups. I start them with the same portions. I give them the exact same plan. Let's just say, theoretically, I just give them this exact same plan. What would happen along the way? In most cases, the person who's using the anabolic steroids and the fat burners can get away with consuming a little bit more calories, more carbohydrates, more fats, less cardio, and still I can get them down into shape. I can help them lose 2-3 pounds a week of body fat. Whereas if I'm working with someone who's natural, they might have to suffer a little bit more. Okay, they don't have those, what I call crutches, which would be the anabolic steroid usage and the fat burners to help them. So they don't have any assistance. They have to rely on their natural genetics. So yeah, they might have to cut down their carbohydrates. I might have to reduce their caloric consumption. I might have to increase their cardio to get them down to the same level as the person who's using anabolic steroids. That's a fact. Now, again, genetics play a huge role. I work with a lot of natural athletes who can get into incredible shape. And they just have fast metabolisms. Then I work with people who, you know, they didn't win the genetic lottery and they have a really hard time getting in shape. So I have to diet them down and they have to suffer a little bit. But the steroid usage does make it easier. And I don't care what people say and say, oh, no, it doesn't. It absolutely does. Because you have to remember, when you're on steroids, steroids allow you to build muscle more efficiently, lift heavier in the gym. And if you're on fat burners combined with that, well, then you're going to burn more calories in a rested state. So, you know, you put that combination together, of course, it's going to be easier to burn fat and build muscle. I'm not saying that you can just cruise on that. You obviously have to put in the work, but it is easier. So someone who's using anabolic steroids is going to have a much easier time losing body fat and getting into shape versus someone who's natural. Now, I'm not suggesting that anyone should go on anabolic steroids, but this is a fact. So that's why when I work with someone on their nutritional plan, that's my first question. Are you going to go the enhanced route or are you going to go to the natural route? You're an adult. You can make this decision. It's not my job to tell you which way to go. But I definitely take that into consideration when I'm putting a plan together and more importantly, as the plan goes on. But it's not the main factor. It's just a factor. Okay. So to answer that question, I would use the same food groups. I would typically start the person based on their activity level. Like I said, their genetics, you know, how long they've been training for, male, female, age. And then again, yeah, I would take into consideration the steroid usage along the way. But it's all really case dependent, guys. And there's so many times I've been doing nutritional plans now for close to 20 years. And there's so many times when people, I'm putting them on a plan and they're losing 2-3 pounds a week consistently. And all of a sudden they hit a plateau. And there's been wacky things I've done. All of a sudden I've had to increase the calories and they start losing weight again to get past that plateau. And we're talking natural athletes here. So the body's a funny thing. So it's no black and white answer. Each person I work with, it's case to case, and that's just the way it is. But yes, using anabolic steroids and fat burners will make it a little bit easier for you to lose body fat and build muscle. Yes. Okay, next question. Hi, Nick. I bought the bone broth and collagen powder that you recommend, but I'm not sure when I should take them. Can I just take them together? You can, but I wouldn't recommend it. Think of it this way. If you're putting your meals together and I put on your meal plan 200 grams of protein, I want you to have 200 grams of protein in a day. You say, well, can I just have 200 grams of protein all in one sitting? Technically, you probably could. I mean, you'd have a difficult time digesting that, but you could. But your body's not going to be able to absorb all those nutrients in one sitting. So same thing goes for the collagen and the bone broth. Even with your supplements, I usually try to tell my clients to space out their supplements throughout the day as well. Give your body time to digest and take in all the nutrients. Because what happens is if you take in too many nutrients in one sitting, it's like a cup, right? And if you put a cup under a faucet of running water and you just leave it there, what's going to happen? It's going to overflow, right? So same thing. You don't want to overflow all the nutrients because your body is just going to go to waste. Your body's not going to use all those nutrients. So my recommendation is to space it out. For myself personally, what I'll typically do, I'll usually do the collagen in the morning. I'll take that with my supplements. I'll just put a scoop into cold water and drink that down in a fasted state. And then I'll have my morning oatmeal and then I'll go throughout my day. And then with the bone broth, I'll typically have that right before I go to bed. So about half an hour before I go to bed. I find it really helps suppress my appetite. And I don't know if it's placebo, but I noticed that my sleep is much better ever since I've been taking bone broth. So I've looked into that. There's no real scientific studies that or no conclusive studies that show that there's any relation to better quality of sleep in bone broth. But for me right now, I'm noticing I'm sleeping much better when I had the bone broth before I go to bed. So I don't know why, but I do. So yeah, what I would recommend doing is spacing them out. Now, you don't have to put one in the first thing in the morning, one at night like I do. You can do one first thing in the morning, one at lunch hour, late afternoon, however you like, whatever works for obviously your lifestyle and your day-to-day life. But I wouldn't recommend taking them in all at once. And just think of it, same thing with your meal plan. You wouldn't take all your meals. If you have 6 meals in a day, you wouldn't have them all in one sitting. I hope you wouldn't anyway. So treat your supplements the same way. And yeah, I honestly wouldn't recommend taking them at the same time, guys. Okay. Nick, which style of training works better for building muscle? High volume training or high intensity, low volume training? They both will work to a degree. But what I usually advise my clients to do is to stick with high volume, moderate intensity. And by moderate intensity, that doesn't mean I want you checking your cell phone in between sets. Moderate intensity means that I don't want you maxing out each set with the heaviest weight you can lift. So I'm a huge advocate of doing high volume training, especially for natural athletes. And even for my enhanced lifters too, you know, when you look at the people who do, we've talked about low volume, for example, right? Low volume, typically that's like the Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman style of doing maybe 3 to 4 sets for an exercise, as heavy as you possibly can go, and to take it to failure in and out of the gym within 30 to 40 minutes. The problem with that training, though, is it puts a lot of strain on the joints. And if you look at guys like Ronnie Coleman and Dorian Yates, if you're a bodybuilder follower, you know both those guys, their careers ended due to injuries, right? With Ronnie, it was also age, but injuries were catching up with him. With Yates, he couldn't compete anymore. He had everything, torn tricep. I think he had a torn bicep at one point, his shoulder problems, and that's from going very heavy. So the problem with low volume training, high intensity, is that you're not allowing the muscle bellies to warm up sufficiently, right? So why I'm a huge advocate of using the high volume training. Like, for example, what I'll typically do with most of my clients, if we're doing a chest and back workout, I'll have them do 54 sets in 60 minutes. Now, that's a lot of sets. And a lot of people say, well, that's overtraining. But I mean, knock on wood, I've never had a client suffer from a serious injury in the gym, because we use progressive overload theory. We pyramid the weights up gradually. Sometimes we have to take the weights down throughout the workouts. It all depends on how that workout's going on that day for that person. But typically I'll keep the reps between 12 to 15, occasionally down to 10. You know, if you follow my Instagram, or you watch me on the YouTube videos, or you follow me on my online coaching app, you know that I never do reps of 6 or 8 unless you're doing a drop set, but rarely do I ever throw in single digit reps. But I find double digit reps work best, not just for your muscle bellies, but also to preserve your joints. So I'm a firm believer in using high volume, moderate intensity in the gym. And again, just so there's no confusion, by moderate intensity, you're still lifting heavy, you're still lifting hard, but you should still be able to keep those reps between 12 to 15, sometimes down to 10, depending on what exercise you're doing, where you're at in your workout. But I find that works best for most people. It's a good way to stay injury free. I personally have never suffered from a serious injury in the gym. I've never torn a bicep, tricep, or quadricep. I've never had any shoulder problems, lower back issues, nothing like that. And I've been doing this for over 20 years. And I credit that to high volume training. It allows me to warm up perfectly. If I'm doing a basic straight set of, let's say, barbell back squats, I'll actually do 6 sets of squats. 2 of those sets will be warm-up sets and 4 will be working sets. If you're doing high volume, high intensity, you might only do 3 working sets and that's it, no warm-up sets, and get right in there. That's what a lot of these guys do. They might do 1 warm-up set and then 2 really heavy duty sets. And by the time they get to their mid-30s, they've torn or broken, or they're done. Something's been torn or broken. So I don't recommend doing the low volume, high intensity training. Definitely don't recommend doing that for natural athletes. If you're enhanced, I guess you could, but you could still risk injury. And we've seen it done with previous Mr. Olympias. Use them as a perfect example. Anyone who did that high intensity, low volume type of training, they all ended up having to retire early due to injuries. All right, next question. Hi, Nick, do you change your clients' supplement protocols during flu season? Well, that is a very good question. What's funny is, again, I'll go back to this with the question, the first question with regards to the enhanced lifters versus the natural. This is really case dependent. So I have some people, for example, who have kids, right? And rule of thumb, if you have kids, you're going to get sick throughout the year. Kids always get sick, especially when they're little. Like, they always bring home something and then the parents get sick. I have quite a few clients who have kids, and yeah, they have to cancel their sessions. They're out for a week, they're out for 2 weeks. My clients who don't have kids, they're usually okay. They might get sick once a year, but my clients who have young kids, they usually get sick at least like once every 2 or 3 months. So again, you have to base it on the individual. Does this person, do they have maybe a more compromised immune system? If you're working with someone who might have, say, MS, for example, their immune system might be a little bit more compromised versus someone who doesn't have MS. So that you have to take that into consideration too. So what I typically do with the person I'm working with is I'll start them off with a supplement protocol, let's say vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, some zinc. Again, there's some things I put in and take out too. Apple cider vinegar with some people, not everyone. It really depends, again, on the person I'm working with and the diet plan I'm giving them. If I'm working with a vegetarian versus, say, a meat eater, I might give the vegetarian a little bit of extra iron, right, in their diet. I might have to supplement with them with iron. I don't usually like to supplement with iron because iron is very hard on the liver, but sometimes you have to, right? Especially if they have an iron deficiency. So I'm getting a little bit off track there. So just to go back into the actual supplement protocol, typically during flu season, what I will advise my clients to do, the ones who work with me online, is to increase their vitamin C by about 1,000 milligrams. Anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams a day. Vitamin D, same thing. I'll usually recommend them to increase that by about 1,000 IU. Now, as far as vitamin E and vitamin B, I like using both of those, but I'll typically keep them the same. If, for example, when COVID was at its height, when we didn't know what was going on with people, everyone was getting COVID, people were getting sick. We didn't know how you could get COVID. If you get it off a table, you get it from talking to someone. I did recommend zinc to a lot of my clients. There was some concrete evidence with zinc and COVID. So I went with that and said, okay, you know what? The science makes sense to me, and it still does. So I actually keep zinc on people's plans now, not just for COVID, but for also other potential viruses in the air, right? Airborne viruses. So zinc's also another good vitamin to keep in. Okay. So it really depends on the person I'm working with, but typically, yeah, during flu season, the only things I really increase are vitamin C and vitamin D. But if I am working with someone who is severely immunocompromised and they get sick very often, I'll probably look at some other options as well. And there's a few things that I do with people who are dealing with, like, I do work with some people. One of my clients right now is going through cancer treatments, for example. So right now, what I'm doing with her, we're trying to really follow a protocol that her doctors have laid out, but at the same time, she wants to still work out with weights. She also wants to exercise. So we have to make sure we're supplementing with proper vitamins and nutrients, right? So again, it really depends on the person that you're working with. But for flu season, my recommendation, this goes for everyone, increase your vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams to 2,000 milligrams a day, vitamin D, 1,000 IU a day, and hopefully that keeps you healthy. Okay, next question. Hi, Nick. What is your view about asking someone out on a date from the gym? I think it's fine, but my girlfriend thinks it's inappropriate. Yeah, you're going to get mixed responses on that one. Um, okay, so you talk to most women, because I train a lot of women, and a lot of women don't want to be, not saying all women, but a lot of women do not want to be approached at the gym. Um, and this is from my female clients telling me this. If they, they train with me in a private facility, but they also train on their own every once in a while, or they'll go to a yoga class and they don't want to be bothered. So if you're in a commercial gym setting, I've asked girls out from the gym before, but you usually get a signal, right? And this works for men too, right? There's a signal. So one of those signals might be if you're in the gym training and there's a person you see all the time in the gym, say you go at the same time, you have a similar schedule and you see them and you smile, you say hi. If the person takes off, let's say they have their headphones on, they take off their headphones and they're training, that's usually a signal that they're interested in talking to you. If they keep their headphones on, I've seen this of a lot of guys in commercial gyms. They'll go approach a woman and the woman does not take her headphones off and they still keep talking and the woman still keeps her headphones on. It's quite obvious that the woman is not interested. So it's funny that a lot of guys don't pick up on that. For myself personally, I mean, yes, I've met women at the gym, but there's usually, I've built up a rapport with them. I've seen them on a regular basis. So, I've spotted them a few times and then you get that signal. And then there's other people I see at the gym too, men as well, who I see, and we never have a conversation. If I go to a commercial gym, I might see them and I recognize them. I say a quick hello and I keep training. Because I'm someone who, when I train, I don't like to be bothered. I want to focus on my workout. I don't think there's anything wrong as long as the person is giving you the signal that it's okay to approach them. Like for me, I know many times when I used to train for contests, I didn't even make eye contact with people because I didn't want people coming over to talk to me in between a set because it would throw me off. It would distract me. I wanted to stay focused. I wanted to work out. Now that I'm no longer competing for shows, I'm okay if someone wants to come and talk to me at my gym and, say it's a client or if it's another trainer, they want to talk to me in between sets. It doesn't really bother me anymore. But back when I competed, yeah, I took it very seriously. I mean, I still take my training seriously now, but I'm not as serious as it was when I used to compete. So I'm okay with someone talking to me, but at the same time, I never take longer than 30, 45 seconds in between sets. So they can talk all they want, but I'm not going to be responding really back. So again, I would say, look for the signal and really try to look for that signal. If someone is not taking off their headphones when they see you, that's usually a good sign that they're not interested. Or if they're not making eye contact with you, that's probably another good sign, or they're just really shy. But it's a gray area because, again, you talk to some people, most of the women I train, they do not want to be approached at the gym. I'm not saying all women, I'm just saying the women I work with, they all tell me they do not want to be approached at the gym. So, they're sweating, their makeup's running, and they just don't want to be bothered. They're there to work out. And I understand that. I mean, I'm there to work out too, right? So, I mean, I don't know how many women usually pick up guys at the gym, but it's usually the guys that are trying to pick up the women. So, guys, don't be inappropriate. Don't be there staring at a woman when she's doing like a straight leg deadlift right in front of you. I mean, don't be watching a woman when she's doing like a pelvic hip thrust and being inappropriate and coming up and making comments. I've seen this, and I'm not a dating guru, but for men out there, I'm gonna tell you right now, don't do that shit. I train a lot of women and they don't like that shit. So don't be creepy in the gym. All right, next question. Hey, Nick, I'm a peanut butter addict and I can't stop. I go through an entire jar every 2 days. I'm starting contest prep next month and my coach still wants to keep it on my plan, but I'm worried it's a trigger food for me. He says to just limit my portions, but I don't think I can do this. Any tips on how to control my cravings? When you're dealing with a trigger food, and trigger foods can actually be healthy foods, like in the case of natural peanut butter, right? I assume you're using natural peanut butter if you're getting ready for a contest. Natural peanut butter is a very healthy food, but too much of it can cause issues, right? It's very high in calories for one. 1 tablespoon is 100 calories. So if you're eating a jar every 2 days, that's a lot of calories, right? Especially if you're getting ready for a competition. So my recommendation when you're dealing with foods that are your trigger foods and you eat too much of that, I used to have that problem with oatmeal when I used to prepare for shows. I would overeat oatmeal. So you got to think, okay, should I eliminate this food or can I portion control? In your case, you can't portion control. So your coach, in my opinion, your coach shouldn't be saying, well, just portion control, because we know you can't. So what I would do is with you, if I were working with you, I would just take peanut butter out completely and I would substitute it with another fat source. Okay. So whether that's omega-3 eggs, extra virgin olive oil, MCT oil, avocados, maybe almond butter, just something that can replace one fat with another fat. Okay, it doesn't, what if you're dealing with someone who's allergic to peanut butter? You can't just say, well, limit your portions. No, in your case, it's the same thing. It's a trigger food for you. So you have to think, okay, I have to get this food out of my house so it's not there. So I'm not tempted by it. And that's where I'd use another fat source. So I have actually, I think 2 or 3 of my clients who had issues with peanut butter, all women too. None of the guys did. It was all women. So that's an interesting phenomenon. I wonder what that is. I should look into that, why it's all women. But anyway, so peanut butter was a huge trigger food for them. So what we did was I took it out, knowing that it was a food we couldn't have. And I did the exact same thing. I put in extra virgin olive oil, MCT oil, like I said, omega-3 eggs. I gave them another fat source to use. So I have one client who's completely allergic to peanuts. So I can't put any peanut butter or even almond butter on her plan. So again, we use other sources of fats. So it's not necessary to consume peanut butter. It is a trigger food for you. Take it out completely, use another fat. I would just mention to your coach, like, no, I can't have it in. I'm an addict, right? That's like saying to someone who's addicted to smoking and say, well, just limit your smokes. And I have 2 of my clients who smoke and they say, you know, when I'm stressed out, I'm going to have a fucking cigarette. I don't care if you say limit it to 1 cigarette a day. I might just have the whole pack. So it's better just to take the pack away. Don't have it at all. Same thing. Don't have the peanut butter at all in the house. Get rid of it. Substitute another fat in. Period. Done. Okay. Hey, Nick, why do you do your dumbbell curls against the wall? Is this to stop yourself from swinging? Can't you just do this seated on a bench then? Okay. So reason I have my clients and myself do dumbbell curls against the wall, well, yeah, swinging to a degree, but what you see in a lot of my training videos is it's not necessarily about keeping myself against the wall. It's more about keeping my elbows against the wall. And the reason I do that is as I come up into a contraction, now the peak contraction is going to end, my hand's going to end at chest level. If I'm doing a full standing dumbbell curl, well, you see most guys and women do in the gym, they'll do this, right? They come up. Problem is when you do this, you use a lot of your shoulder, right? So if you keep your elbow back, now you're going to isolate the bicep directly. If I bring my shoulder forward, yeah, I'm still going to use my bicep, but I'm also using a lot of shoulder to help bring that weight up. So I wouldn't advise you to do a dumbbell curl like that. And I know that's the way most people in the gym do dumbbell curls. But the great thing about doing dumbbell curls with your elbows up against the wall, A, you don't have to lift as heavy because you're going to stimulate the muscle fibers and you're not going to put emphasis on the actual rotator cuff. And B, you're going to keep all that pressure off your joints. So when I talk about the rotator cuff, but also your elbows, you're not overstraining your tendons or your joints. You're just isolating the muscle belly. So that's a great way to train. It's almost like a pre-exhaust technique. So that's why I do that with people. I still have people do regular standing curls of, say, an easy bar where they are coming up all the way, but then that's because they're working the long head of the bicep. If you're doing a dumbbell curl, you're trying to stimulate what's called the short head of the bicep. So by keeping your elbows back against the wall, you're going to come up to a full contraction. I put a video up on my Instagram earlier this week doing a cable curl, the exact same technique, elbows back, cables up, and bringing the hands just to chest level. My shoulders are retracted. I'm not bringing my shoulders forward. Take your shoulders out of the movement so you can isolate the bicep. You'll get way more out of the exercise. I promise you, you're not going to have to lift as heavy. You're going to save your joints. Biceps are a small muscle. Remember that. So you don't need to overtax them with super heavy weight. Okay. Hey, Nick, I have a defibrillator and drink a 5-shot espresso twice each day. I also do a pre-workout on workout days that consist of 300 milligrams of caffeine. Lately, I've noticed my heart beating much faster than usual when I'm working out. Do you think this is because of the caffeine in the pre-workout or the caffeine in the 5-shot espresso that might be causing the issue? Or is it something else? To be honest, I don't know. I don't know. But I will tell you a 5-shot espresso, I believe, consists of about 400 milligrams of caffeine. So if you're having 2 of those a day, that's 800 milligrams of caffeine. Now, if you're adding another 300 milligrams of caffeine from a pre-workout to that's 1,100 milligrams of caffeine. That's a lot of caffeine to consume in one day. So even if you didn't even have a heart condition or a defibrillator in, I wouldn't advise you to have that much caffeine in a day. That to me is just too much. I've said this before, if you have a heart condition, you have to be so careful with caffeine. Personally, myself, if I had a heart condition, I wouldn't even do caffeine. I'm not saying don't do it, but it's just for me, I wouldn't do it. So I would definitely be taking that down a shot. If anything, I'd just get rid of the espressos and just do regular coffee. Now, if you're finding that difficult to do, then maybe just do one espresso, take the other one out and get rid of that pre-workout. Do the espresso before you work out. If you're doing that for that reason, do the espresso before you work out. Then you're taking that, then at least you're taking that 1100 milligrams of caffeine down to 400 milligrams of caffeine. But my recommendation would be to go talk to your doctor regardless, because it might have nothing to do with caffeine whatsoever. So it's good to go get that checked out, talk to your doctor and say you're noticing an irregular heartbeat. It could be other factors too. It could be your diet, it could be lack of sleep, could be stress, but it very well could be the caffeine. So, but regardless of a heart condition, I would not recommend anyone consume over 1,000 milligrams of caffeine a day. The maximum amount of caffeine that I would ever have someone consume ever would be like 400 milligrams in one day. For me, I personally, I do 1 cup of coffee a day. It's 250 milligrams, and that's more than enough. I don't even do a pre-workout anymore. But I'll usually do that before I work out, and that's more than enough. Okay. Nick, what do you recommend your clients eat when they travel? I have 3 upcoming work trips before Christmas and have no idea as to how I'm going to be able to stay on track with my diet. Okay. It's a good question because I have a lot of people that travel. And you're right, it can be difficult because let's say you're going to a different country, if you're going to a hotel where they only have certain foods that you can order off the menu, it can be difficult. So generally what I'll recommend is when I travel, I'll usually look before I go, what's around me as far as restaurants, right? Do I have, like, say if here in Vancouver, we have like those chain restaurants like Earl's, Cactus Club, Joey's. Those places, even though I don't eat there, they're easy. It's very easy to use those to get a good meal in. I have clients when they travel throughout BC and they'll say, is there a Joey's or Cactus Club? Because you can easily order a chicken salad and you can say, okay, no dressing or dressing on the side. You can get that with some rice. Some of those places even do quinoa. So it's very easy to eat clean. You just basically have to ask for no this, no this, no this, no this, and just have pretty much plain food. So that's not that hard. But if you're in a situation where you don't have any of those restaurants around and you're around fast foods and stuff, it can be difficult. So that's why I recommend, if you can, if you're traveling within your country, so within Canada, you can actually bring food with you. So what I used to do when I used to go for shows, I'd bring packets of oatmeal with me. You can get those just plain, not the sugar ones, just the plain oatmeal with you. And then I'd just put up protein powder in Ziploc bags, take that with me. And I even take some rice, and I usually just buy a rice cooker and cook it in my hotel. That wasn't a problem because I'd always make sure I had a hotel that had a suite, so that would be a hotel suite with a kitchen inside, so I could cook my food. But if you're in a situation where you don't have a kitchen in your hotel room, you really have to do your research with what's around you. Great thing is now with places, things like those meal prep companies, or not meal prep companies, meal service companies like Skip the Dishes, for example, or Uber Eats. A lot of that stuff can be delivered right to your door. So if you are in a hotel and you're on back-to-back meetings or you're in conferences, you can get that food delivered right to your hotel. So it's become a lot easier now. But I recommend if you're traveling, let's say if you're in Canada, you're traveling within Canada, bring some food with you that's easy to prep. Stuff like protein powder and oatmeal, it doesn't take up much room in your suitcase. If you're going away for 3 or 4 days, that's easy to throw in. If your hotel is close to a grocery store, go do some groceries when you arrive. I would spend the extra money to get a kitchen, or at least get a stovetop and a fridge in your hotel room. It's worth it. In my opinion, it's totally worth it to have that. So then you can prep your meals and eat regularly. You don't have to, I have one of my clients, she's going away for a week this week. Actually, she's going away to, I think, Calgary for a week. Same thing I said to her, I'm like, okay, get a hotel suite with a kitchen so you can cook your foods. And she's on it. She's going to the grocery store when she gets there. She's getting all her food. I told her she doesn't need to weigh or portion out her meals, but she's still going to do that. So it can be done. You just have to put in a little bit more effort. But do your research where you're going, see what's around, see if there's what the restaurants, what they serve, look at their menus online so you have an idea as to what you can order, and just go from there. And don't be afraid when you do go to restaurants, guys. I worked in restaurants for 15 years. I can tell you right now, it takes nothing for a server to put no oil, no extra sauce. You can say anything you want. You can say substitute, take out the potatoes and put in rice, or take out you can say take out the potatoes and put in more green veg. So that's fine too. Like you can make substitutions to your meals. I think a lot of people feel strange about making substitutions to their meals. You don't have to. Okay. It takes nothing for the kitchen to do it. It takes nothing for the servers to do it. So don't feel odd. Just do it. All right. Last question. And this is a question I saw earlier this week. So I was going to save it for the end. Okay, it's a good question. Hey, Nick, I've been training consistently for about 6 months now and have noticed that my acne is worse now than it ever has been before. I try to shower after my workouts when I can and follow a pretty clean diet. Do you have any tips on how to prevent acne breakouts caused from training? Yeah, I saw this question earlier this week, and I've had this question before, and it's a really good question because nobody wants to deal with acne, right? And I've never had the greatest skin. I'm fairly fortunate that I've never had severe acne, but yeah, there's been times in my life where I've had a pimple or two for sure. Fortunately for me, I hang out with a lot of gay men. Another thing, fortunately for me, I work out and I train a lot of smart women. And when it comes to skincare, gay men and smart women, they know their shit. Straight guys, they use a bar of Dove soap. Straight guys don't know shit about skincare. So you go to the experts, gay men, smart women. So when I was looking for a skin protocol myself, I look at some of my clients and they've got fantastic skin. I'm like, what do you guys do? And, you know, everyone's got, some people have their own techniques that they use, their own skincare products that they use. But the majority of the people that I would work with who were using a really good product line, it was called Zeo Skincare. And I promise you, I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not trying to give them a plug-in or anything like this, but I've been using their skincare for probably about the last, I think, 2 or 3 years. And I've noticed a huge difference. It definitely helps. And I actually took some out of my cabinet to show you. So what I'll use typically in the morning, it's an exfoliating cleanser. Okay. So I usually use this first thing in the morning, wake up, use cold water. I've been told to use cold water over hot water. This is all things that I've been told from my clients with phenomenal skin. So I listen to them. Okay. I'm not the expert in skin. They are. So the exfoliating cleanser, this works really well. First thing in the morning, as soon as you get up. And then I take it again before I go to bed. So after my nighttime shower, I'll usually use this as well, or during my nighttime shower. For workouts, though, what I'll typically use are the Zeo complexion pads. Okay, so they come in blue blocks. These guys, I've been told, don't use them every day because they can be harsh on the skin. But during times where, let's say I'm doing a workout in between clients, when I'm done my workout, I don't have time to shower, I'll just take one of these pads, and I'll wipe it over my face, and that helps as well, keeps my skin clear. And then the last thing that I've been told to use twice a day, I sometimes use it 3 times a day because I typically shower 2 to 3 times a day, is a Daily Defense moisturizer, which also comes in this box here. Okay. So I find this works as well, 2 to 3 times a day, just helps keep the skin. I find it helps keep my skin hydrated. Again, I've never had the best skin, but I find using this definitely helps. And you got to remember, people like us who lift weights on a regular basis, we're not normal. The average person doesn't exercise, never mind 3 or 4 times a week. They barely even do it once a week. So this is why, like, for me, I usually shower 2 or 3 times a day. First thing in the morning when I wake up, right after my workout, if I can, and then at the end of the day before I go to bed. So if you're working out, you know, you're going to have a buildup of sweat, your pores get clogged. So you're going to have to use some kind of skincare product. I mean, I think everyone should be using a skincare product, especially after the age of, say, 25. I was a little late to the game, but I've noticed ever since I started using those 3 products, as well as an eye cream, and then I think I use another exfoliating scrub to help as well. But that's for other, you know, I don't use that every day. I think they use the scrub like once or twice a week. Eye cream I use actually every day. But for the workouts, when it comes to acne, I find those products work really well. So the exfoliator, first thing in the morning, and then before you go to bed. The complexion pads, I recommend using them after your workouts, especially on the times where you can't have a shower. Yeah, let's face it. Sometimes you have a shower and you have to run to a meeting. You don't have time, or sometimes you have a workout and you have to run to a meeting. You don't have time to shower, right? So these work great. These complexion pads, I'll use them, and you wouldn't believe all the sweat it gets off right away. And it's the pads like usually dark after I've actually done that clean. And then the Daily Defense moisturizer. Zeal. That's what I use. It doesn't have to be Zeal, but the reason I use this is because it's medicated cream. It's good. It's a little bit more expensive than your typical go to Shoppers Drug Mart or London Drugs and get something over the counter there. But you know, there's something to be said about using medicated products. So who knows? I think it works great, but you don't have to use those particular products. I just find they work really well. And I've had that question a few times, and yeah, getting acne sucks. And when you work out and you sweat and you don't wash your face, you're going to get acne. A lot of people are. And especially, you know, you can follow a very clean diet. Sometimes, again, it's just your genetics, right? So I find those products work well. But I don't know, if you got another product that works well and I don't know anything about it, tell me, put it in the comments below and message me and I'll check it out. You know, maybe there's on a cheaper alternative for someone who's maybe working on a bit of a budget and they want to find a cheaper alternative to use for the skincare products. But that's the line I use, Zeal. And I use, like I said, the exfoliator cleanser, the complexion pads. I'll use a daily moisturizer. And then I'll use, I think it's an exfoliating scrub twice a week and a eye cream because I get severe bags under my eyes because you people stress the fuck out of me. My clients anyway. Anyway, guys, that's it for this week. This episode will be going up on Saturday evening. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your diet, training, or supplementation, feel free to email me your questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Everyone have a great weekend. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel, and I will see you all next week.